Welcome to episode 14 of the Inner Sanctum, the internet's one and only dark ambient vlog, and I am your host. My name is Joe. Well, as you've probably already noticed if you've watched this vlog before, I now have glasses, and kind of a funny story, just the short version is that turns out all these years I've been a little blind and I didn't realize it. I guess turns out the world's not as blurry as I thought it was. And this has sort of been a thing going on for a number of years now, where every time I would drive a car, my fiance would say to me, dude, or, well, she didn't say dude, but she would say, Joe, you need to get glasses because you're driving terrible, you're all over the road, and I don't think you can even see what the fuck you're doing. And turns out she was pretty correct. And so I got glasses a couple weeks ago, and basically, I was just supposed to read have these for when I was reading and driving at night, in the morning, or, you know, overcast skies, all that kind of stuff. But I've kind of found that it makes sense to wear them all the time because, as I already said, when I have these on, I suddenly realized the world is not as blurry as I thought it was, and it's like I went from like a low, my vision went from like a low resolution video to like a high HD vision now. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully I don't look stupid or anything like that. My fiance has assured me that I look handsome, so I'm gonna take her word for it. And I mean, if I do look terrible, whatever, who gives a shit, right? So anyway, this episode I wanted to just save a little time for myself because I guess I've never really talked too in depth about how the Noctilucant project, you know, came to be, and I wanted to just, you know, kind of give you some like behind the scenes stories and just talk about some of the songs on, you know, my first couple releases, and yeah, you know, and if you like my music, I think you'll love this episode because, like I said, you know, get the some, you know, the behind the stories, little facts and stuff like that. It might be fun, and if you've never heard my music before, this might be a way to you know, get you interested in it. Into it, you know, I mean, if this video intrigues you and you buy one of my albums, that's freaking super cool. I would also, you know, I'd really appreciate that. It'd be really cool. And I mean, I guess if you've listened to my music and you hate my music, you think it fucking sucks, well, I guess this is the episode for you. So watch an older one or something, or turn it off. I don't know, but whatever. Yeah, that's that episode for you if you think my music sucks. So anyway. We're going to start by talking about my first album, Back to the Mud, which came out in 2015, a self-released album, and an album that still to this day means a lot to me, and I think it is my most popular album, at least, I mean, as far as Bandcamp sales are, it's by far the most popular, and there was a video on the internet at one point in time where somehow this video had gotten over like 1 million views, and I mean, there was all these comments on the video, and a lot of good stuff, of course, but a lot of, and it's amazing, like the really negative things people say about your art and your music, your creations, and like that more, you know, public forum where a lot of people are exposed to it. It's funny the things they say, pretty cruel sometimes too, actually, but I don't let shit like that bother me, not too much anyway, and even with that stuff being out there, even that negativity being out there, I've persevered and continued onward. So let's get into it. Alright, released back in 2015, self-released might I add, is my first album, Back to the Mud. Back to the Mud will always be a very special album in my heart because not only because it's the first Noctilucant album, but it's because it's the first music I ever created in my whole life, and really going back to when I was a child, I always wanted to create music. I always wanted to be in a band. But at some point in my life, I kind of realized that the band atmosphere wouldn't really work for me because I just always had this thought in my head, and I guess I've come to realize now as an adult that if I was in a band and like some idea of mine was like compromised or wasn't used in the band, I think I'd freak the fuck out basically, and probably would just like storm out and quit the band or something like that, because it's just kind of the way I am. I guess I'm an asshole, maybe, I don't know. But I just realized at a certain point doing a band wouldn't work, and that's when it became more important to me to, you know, create a solo project where I could have put all of my ideas, be the sole creator, and be the dictator of everything that happens with this music project, and not have to, have to hear anything from anyone. I would have, everything I said happened, and everything I thought happened, and yeah, sure, when you're in a band or when you're doing a music project with someone else, you have those other creative ideas coming in, but I just know myself well enough. It wouldn't have worked out very well. So, anyway, this album was created back in the summer of 2015, and I had acquired my synthesizer just about a year earlier when a friend of mine, he had just got out of college studying like electrical kind of stuff, and he somehow got this work contract to go work in Greenland, and Greenland of all places, and he was going to move there for 2 years, and basically before he moved there, he decided to just get rid of like 95% of his possessions, and he then just like approached me and said, "Hey dude, I know you've always wanted to mess around with a synthesizer, would you like to buy my synthesizer?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely," and it is like an $800 synthesizer, and he offered it to me for, I believe, $250. So I just was like, yes, absolutely. I went and pulled the money out of the bank and gave it to him, and that's sort of where Noctilucant first began. I immediately started experimenting with ideas and seeing what came out of me, and as crazy as it sounds, right from the get-go, I was able to create some pretty interesting dark ambient soundscapes. I mean, they weren't very well refined, but the ideas were already there, right in the demo stages and all that kind of stuff, and I had a lot of fun just getting going with it. And even in those early days, I don't know if I necessarily knew that I was going to create a project, and I wanted to, but I guess it was still just like that pessimist in me was like, this isn't going to happen. You're just going to probably play with this for like 2 or 3 months, and you're going to stick it in the closet, and you're never going to touch it again. And a reason why that mindset was kind of backed up was because at the time I didn't have a very powerful PC and I wasn't able to record. And I think that's where, I was like, I felt screwed. I didn't know how to do it. I had no idea how to record music, and it turned out really the biggest problem I had was I had a laptop at the time that was very slow and it didn't work. And then you flash forward a little bit, about a year, like I said, in 2015, and we tried hooking the synthesizer up to my girlfriend's computer, and then suddenly I found that ability to record, and that was when a lot of these ideas started pouring out of me. So as I recall, Back to the Mud first started getting wrote in June of 2015. Shortly thereafter, I got fired from my job, and I was very upset because that was the first time in my whole life I'd ever gotten fired from a job, and I got fired for kind of a ridiculous reason too. But being that I was in a relationship with someone, I felt like I had really failed that individual as, just like, bringing income into our household and everything like that. It really hit me hard. And, when people get in that situation, it can go a lot of ways. They can just fall into total despair and just complete ruin and, turn to drugs or something like that. But I decided that I wasn't gonna be sad. I wasn't gonna become a degenerate. I just was gonna take all that negativity and put it into music, put it into something positive, and that's when Back to the Mud really started to take shape. And I've said this before, but a lot of these songs, this album, they happen very quickly, and within, I would say, about 2 months, the album was totally complete. And the reason for that is because throughout all of July and August, I was working this album every single day. I would kiss my girlfriend goodbye for work, and then I would work on this album from 6:30 in the morning to, noon or something every day before I started moving or thinking about food even. It was pretty crazy. I was just obsessed, and I was just constantly pumping ideas in this album and just seeing what would happen. And it was a hell of an experience. And there's a part of me that really misses that freedom to just be able to be creative every single day and just do this thing, But after 2 months, I got a new job, the job I'm still currently working, and I'm happy there. But that brief window of time there where I had all that creative freedom really was something special. Over the years, a lot of people have asked me, what does Back to the Mud mean? And I think a lot of people kind of put the pieces together and realized it was about burying someone in the ground, or, going back to our roots and all that kind of thing. But the term itself stems from Joseph Abercrombie's first book, The Blade Itself. And this is a book I read back in, when did this come out? Well, I feel like it came out in 2009. I picked it up shortly after it came out, and I absolutely loved the book. And the term in this book is basically, it was used by these barbarian warriors, and who, whenever they would bury one of their own, they would say, "Back to the mud." We returned him back to the mud. And for some reason, that term just really stuck with me. It felt like just a brilliant, album title right there. So I had to use it. And I don't know if a lot of people have made the connection between the album title and this book, but that's where it comes from. And as sort of a funny side note, a lot of my song titles and album titles too have been lifted from song lyrics or references to some of my favorite bands, and I sometimes I really wonder if people catch on to that or not. But and I mean, I know it kind of makes me sound like I'm maybe a rip-off of sort, but I mean, sometimes some bands have such good lyrics that I can't help myself but kind of take some of those lyrics and slightly change them around, and then just use them as my own song titles. It's too good. So if that's plagiarism, sure, fine, whatever. I don't really care, but that's where the Back to the Mud term stems from. The Blade Itself by Joseph Abercrombie. So anyway, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about all the melancholy and just the self-defeat of losing my job. It's there was a lot of going on in my mind at the time. I felt like I had failed myself, failed my fiance, and I knew that in that time off I had to do something productive. I think when a lot of people get in that situation, they just they deflate and just lose all ambition in life. And it was weird because where I should have been defeated, I persevered. I made this album, which, as I said earlier, I think to this day is still my most popular album, and it's an album that people still, buy fairly regularly, and I think a lot of people really like. So it's been, pretty cool and really rewarding just to, continue to see the positive comments and, the support. I mean, I can never, it's hard for me to ever express how grateful I am that, people really like my music, because I've been a music-obsessed person since I was 10 years old. I mean, it was way back then that the first band I really obsessed over was Guns N' Roses. I mean, this is, the early 90s here we're talking. It's 1991. And that was the first band I really obsessed, and that's where it started. And then just, from there I graduated on to heavy metal, and then my favorite band was Megadeth and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just been a cycle of things. I've always obsessed over music. So then when, people message me and say all these really just wonderful things about my music, it's just, I don't even know how to express the sentiments. It's just such a good feeling. It if I'm feeling bad at the time, they can just pick me out of that gloom and make me feel so happy. So, I know I try to say this as much as possible, but I can never really express it the right way. But, thank you guys, as always, for, checking out this first album, checking out all of my albums for that matter, and, this vlog and everything. It's, it means a lot to me, and, yeah, man, it's been fun doing these things, and I love doing them. I'm glad I've been able to build an audience and connect with all you guys. I mean, I like, talking to you guys on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, Back to the Mud was a self-released album, and although I had considered sending it to Crowd Chamber, I knew that they probably wouldn't accept it based on the fact that, unfortunately, and I hate to admit this, but a lot of the field recordings in this album were lifted from YouTube, and I'm pretty sure they were all free sounds and all that kind of stuff, and even a lot of them I manipulated them, beyond the point of the original sound. But I'm sure that would have been one factor why they would have denied the album. But still, at the same time, I would have been really intrigued to see what Simon would have said had I sent this album to him, if he would have, taken note of the fact that maybe some of these field recordings were lifted from other places. And I suppose another reason why he may not have agreed to release the album is because it's, in my own opinion, I think it's pretty different from most other dark ambient albums. I think it's a very cinematic album, and I'm not just trying to toot my horn when I say that, but I think if you like albums that have a lot of spoken passages and a lot of other stuff going on, this is an album that you will like. And that was sort of my goal when I created this album. Was I had been really influenced by a lot of the artists that were on Cryo Chamber at the time, because that was sort of, I guess, more or less my introduction to the cinematic dark ambient style. I mean, obviously Atrium Carcerate had been around for a number of years, and Simon always had a very cinematic sound with that project, but that was kind of about it, really. And then, he did Sabled Sun, and that was a huge influence on me for, that was like sort of the, as I said in previous videos, that was really the motivation I needed to finally create a music project. And lots of the other artists that were on Cryo Chamber were just so influential at the time. I was constantly listening to all the albums and bands in their rosters, constantly influencing me during that creative period. So, the front cover of this album, I didn't design it. It was created by a graphic designer named Glitchwitch and a friend of mine whose name is Maya. The idea was, basically I had sort of created a rough version of this in Photoshop, and after I passed it along to her, she made it look way better. And some people have commented on how the artwork is, untypical for dark ambient music. Some dickhead at Heathen Harvest said that it looks like some stupid like computer game like graphics or something like that, and he just bashed me throughout the whole review for some reason. Like, he had a personal grudge with me. I didn't really understand why he was doing that, but yeah, he just kind of kept ripping into me the whole review. I didn't really understand, but she created the artwork, and I absolutely loved it. And it is, I think it is untypical for dark ambient. I don't know, and it's she just really created my vision, because I had, like I said, I had a demo version of it I sent to her, and she really just, I basically wanted this lone character in this ominous setting with like these broken down looking buildings, this sort of like balance between like urban decay and nature and this lonesome figure. That was really, she just nailed it. So I was so happy about that, and it was perfect. And then the packaging itself, well, as you can tell, it comes in this sort of oversized envelope, and this was another idea that I sort of actually I lifted it from another artist, and I'm gonna find that right now actually before we continue on. Where is it? Aha! No, that's my own album. Never mind. No. So the idea for this actually came from a way cooler project called Battle Daggerath, a black metal band from California, and it was based on this packaging, basically like in a black envelope, as you can see, remarkably similar. And I just thought that was super cool. That's something totally different, and a lot of people have, I guess, misunderstood that this was part of the project. People had messaged me saying, like, am I supposed to take the envelope apart? Am I, what? And I guess I don't understand why people thought that, but I think it's probably because of the wax seal that I also put on these. People thought you were just supposed to rip it apart or something. I don't know, but that was what some people were messaging me at the time. So that's, that was the packaging, and once you open it, it comes in a slimline case, which has artwork on the inside here. And the artwork, this particular artwork was not created by me or Maya from Glitchwitch. It was actually an image I found on DeviantArt, and I still kind of feel bad about this, because I messaged the artist and I said, hey man, I really like this artwork, I'd really like to use it, and I'll shoot you some money for it. And I waited like a month, and the guy never replied, and I was just like, well, I could use it, and no one's really gonna ever know, because he's not gonna message me. And all these years later, he still never messaged me back. So I just hope he doesn't see it someday and like want to sue me or something like that. So anyway, this artwork has this sort of decrepit, destroyed, post-apocalyptic city, and the track listing below there, of course. And then out, actually. Then the back side is a photo of me, and sort of a funny thing about that photo is that photo actually is from, I believe, January of 2013, and as I recall, I had taken that shortly after doing a photo shoot with a band from Detroit called Against the Grain. I think I mentioned this before, but I had a short attempt at trying to sort of have a photography career and didn't really go very well. But I had just gotten done shooting this band Against the Grain who were on tour, and yeah, and then I just kind of threw my camera on the tripod and went in this sort of alley and got this kind of cool, ominous picture of me, which, you know, basically was, you know, the first proper Noctilucant promo photo. And when I first started, I was going for like the ominous, shadowy, unknown character kind of vibe with the music and the project, and I wanted to be this nameless character and creating the music. And then, like, I think by the time I created my second album, I had already just, like, abandoned that concept, and I was just like, it's stupid. Like, why be a mysterious character? Just, you know, I should probably take credit for my own creations and everything. And so I did. So there's that again, just in case you couldn't see it. And then the CD itself, which is sort of just a blown up portion of the front cover artwork. Yeah, so a lot of the song titles, and I mean, like I said before, I think a lot of stuff on this record is pretty different from like an average dark ambient record, even like by cinematic standards. I mean, the first song, for example, has some female singing from my girlfriend, and she also does a spoken part on the End It's Near Part 2, and also on the last song there's a part where she sings Frank Sinatra's New York, New York before sort of like the record scratches. It's like, well, basically it's like someone puts a record on, she's the voice singing in, and then the record scratches, and then we go back to this post-apocalyptic hell zone, and then the album just fades away. That was kind of how the album ends. And there's also a song called The Deep Dead Hour, which is, some people said it sounded too Blair Witch-like, I guess, is what someone described it as, but it wasn't influenced by like those found footage films, and it's the dialogue. What you hear is an original creation. It's my voice you hear in that, and it was 100% influenced by this Canadian film called Pontypool. And in this film, this disc jockey, basically, he gets this distress signal from anonymous caller that there's a zombie outbreak and all hell's breaking loose in the city. And just as the hour and a half, 2 hour movie unloads, you kind of get more details of what's going on. And immediately after I watched this movie, that even the next day, since I was still employed, I created this whole song and this whole dialogue, and just I sat around just recording my voice, yelling and screaming, and basically the whole concept behind it was supposed to be two, you know, military guys talking to each other as you know, this zombie outbreak was going on, and obviously it doesn't end well because the character in the song dies. But that's what it's influenced by, and a lot of people thought it was from a movie or a video game, but it was in fact original creation. Forgot to mention that every copy of this album is hand numbered by me, and it's sealed with wax. And again, this is sort of a, you know, I think it's something that's kind of I have never seen any other project do that kind of thing, and some people were a little confused by the whole packaging, but I'm going to show you how this whole process works out real quick. Where's my wax? Okay, there they are. So, basically, there's a better one. Basically, it goes like this. Fire, fire. Like, motherfucker. Okay. So, everyone is sealed with wax. It will drip eventually. It's gotta get hot, I suppose. And the first several copies of the album came with red wax. I've now moved on to silver wax. So those of you who have red wax have a much earlier version of the album and therefore are cooler in my books. Anyway, And then we take our little wax sealer here, press it on there, and voila, we have a wax seal. Beautiful, right? So number 60 of 100 too. So that was that, and yeah, this album, like I said, I still love this album. I mean, I think it's, I think if you like dark ambient music, especially of the cinematic variety, you would enjoy this album. And I sell this album for $5 on my Bandcamp site, so yeah, check it out. This one is currently unsold, so if you want like the video one in your collection, you can brag to your friends and stuff, be like, I have the video he showed, or I have the album he showed in the video. This album is available for $5 on my Bandcamp. So check it out. That's Back to the Mud, my first album. So I know I don't normally talk about digital music on this little show of mine here, but since we're talking about my music, and since the next several releases were digital, it's I think it's going to be okay this one time to talk about digital music, and I'll just make the image appear here somewhere, and we'll just pretend that it's a physical product, right? So after Back to the Mud, I released a compilation called Dead Meat, and so far to date, this is the only release I wish I had not released, because it was basically just a collection of demo versions of songs from Back to the Mud, as well as some even earlier demo songs that predated Back to the Mud by a few months. And I think the reason why I released it is well, first of all, I decided that it was like it was a free gift for those that had bought Back to the Mud and those that showed support. So it had a practical reason, but really in my mind, I sort of got this weird bug about just wanting to grow my discography, and just I wanted to see that Bandcamp page fill up with releases, and it's just in retrospect, I wish I had not done that. It just didn't. I mean, it doesn't really make sense now looking back at it. I mean, yeah, people bought it, and a lot of it's fine and all that, but it was a release that probably should have stayed private. I should have just shown it to really close friends and people that really admired the project, and just kept it private. But whatever, it got released, so it's still there if anyone wants to check it out too. And then I believe it was later 2015, I started working on an EP called Buried Alive in Mud, which was basically just all of the songs from Back to the Mud just stretched and slowed down and mutated into this one huge, like almost 30-minute soundscape where everything was overlaid on top of each other just to create this big apocalyptic beast of sorts, as I called it. And it was pretty well perceived. It was a really cool, like just deep, just suffocating, droning ambient piece, and a lot of people really liked it. And I think for those that really enjoyed Back to the Mud, it was cool seeing some of the, hearing like just these mutated versions of those songs all laid on top of each other, and it remained as just a digital album for, I believe, I think it was later in 2016 when it got a cassette release, with another release, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then following that was another EP called Pain, Plague, and Pestilence, which was more or less just more songs that were created shortly after Back to the Mud, but these songs weren't really fitting into the vibe of the forthcoming album, Oblivion to You All. And Pain, Plague, and Pestilence, those lyrics are lifted from a Dissection song called The Unhallowed, and I love the lyrics, and it felt like a great way to name an EP, so I went with it and I chose it, and I fucking love Dissection, so why not? So following that was another long single EP called Neath the Cerulean Abyss, and this was a nautical, a deep underwater theme piece where basically the song follows this mysterious object that falls from space and goes on this deep sea journey and journeys to the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean where unknown secrets and creatures dwell. And I just wanted to kind of create that. I guess I'm really just really intrigued by the ocean, about all the strange creatures that are at the very bottom and how there's almost no light down there, but there's still life, and that's really fascinating to me. And I think it's really interesting how, you know, there's so much water on this planet, but we know so little about it. Like, we know more about the fucking, like, the universe out there than we know about, you know, stuff that's on our own planets. That's really intriguing to me, you know, just wondering what the hell's down there. Like, is Cthulhu down there? Is, you know, some other fucking horrible monster down there? Is Godzilla down there? Shit. I mean, you know, and it's really intriguing to me, you know, when I think about what could be down there. And sometimes I just go on these, like, vendors where I'm just, like, watching these YouTube videos just about all the, you know, deep sea stuff. It's really interesting. And so that song was my tribute to all that and that fascination. And it was also my first foray into creating a music video. And I basically went to the beach, and at the time I had a camera that could be submerged in water and could record you know, underwater footage and such, and waves and stuff like that. So I put that all together in a cool little music video, and it didn't really get that big of a reception, which was kind of a bummer to me, because I put a lot of work in that video. But again, it was something different, because not a lot of dark ambient, you know, not a lot of dark ambient artists, both past and present, really make that many music videos. And it was kind of cool, you know, editing this 30-minute song down. I think I edited it down in like 10 minutes, doing like the, you know, the edited version for this music video. I had a lot of fun creating it, even though I ended up destroying that old video camera, because I believe I held it underneath the water for too long at some point. It somehow sabotaged the battery or some other thing. It stopped working after that. But whatever you can do. The sacrifices for the arts. So a few months after Neath, the Cerulean Abyss was released, I got contacted from a relatively new label from California called Gray Matter Productions. And they were contacting me because they wanted to release a cassette tape of my music. And this was the first time a label had ever contacted me to work with them. So I was just blown away that, you know, someone out there actually wanted to, you know, was actually interested in my music and would actually, you know, put their money and time, you know, behind something I created. And I was just like blown away by the whole concept. And anyway, what the resulting was Buried Alive in Mud and Neath, the Cerulean Abyss got released on a cassette tape. And yeah, I mean, cassette tapes are very limited in sound and all that kind of thing, but still my thought process was like, well, shit, it's a label, and they want to release my music in a physical format, so that's super cool, because up to that point, the past several releases had been only digital, and although I had been tempted to release those in a physical format, I just, you know, decided to just take it simple and do the digital only release. So they released it, and it is still a very simple and home project for this whole thing. It wasn't, you know, super professional or anything, but that's okay, because, you know, we had a vision and we made a reality, so it's super cool. So the front cover is basically just sort of a mixture of the Neath, the Cerulean Abyss front cover, which was a painting of mine, and comes on a normal black tape, no you know, special printing or anything like that. And then the J card too is just the Buried Alive in Mud artwork, which again is another painting of mine. And I mean, you know, again, this was something the label just printed at home, super simple. I mean, it turned out okay. I mean, the text is a little small, which is unfortunate and not so readable, but you know, it's hard, you know, you never know what's going to happen, these kind of things, you know, so, but either way, it was super cool that Gray Matter Productions, you know, got in contact with me. It was really cool just finding an email that day, and, you know, it was really in that moment where I realized that, you know, maybe there was even more potential for this project, that, you know, I could one day land on a bigger label, or, you know, work with other bigger artists and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty cool, and I'm still, you know, just blown away that you know, that some labels have contacted me and wanted to work with me and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and I still have, I think, one copy of this cassette tape left. Otherwise, you can still grab a few from Gray Matter Productions. And although, you know, this is a physical format, the only thing that's kind of unfortunate about these recordings is that they were never mastered properly, and the sound is quite low, and as such, you really have to turn your stereo up loud just to hear it properly. And but, you know, it's a total DIY package, so, you know, you can't expect total professionalism or, you know, it to be perfect. But so yeah. But if you just want to have those songs in a physical medium, this is still available for, I believe, like I think like $4 or $5 in Gray Matter Productions website. So super cheap, and you know, if you're into cassettes, worth checking out if you want some Noctilucant music in cassette formats. So, in the summer of 2016, I released my second album called Oblivion to You All. And Oblivion to You All is basically just a nice way of saying fuck you all. And I wasn't saying fuck you all to my you know, my fans or my audience. It was just a fuck you all to just everything else in life. It was just a complete disconnection, just going insane and just letting loose, and just you know, going to this primal state during this you know, this, I guess, like, you know, the theme of all my albums have been this sort of continued post-apocalyptic tale. So it was just this character just, you know, on the brink of insanity, just letting loose, just completely coming unhinged and just saying, fuck you all, oblivion to you all. And unfortunately, this album was released digitally, and I really, really, really wanted to release it in physical format, but at the time I was in the process of buying, well, me and my girlfriend were in the process of buying our home, and although I really wanted to release it, do another self-release CDR, it just, I had to save every penny I had. I just couldn't justify it, and I knew it was, you know, it wouldn't have cost more than a couple $100 to make that a reality, but I couldn't do it. So I had to save. I just decided to release it digitally. And fortunately, even though I did release it digitally, it got an enormous positive feedback for a self-released album, and I got some absolutely glowing reviews, which just, like, still to this day when I read them, I'm just like, wow, like, this is someone talking about my music, and I'm just, I guess I just can't believe someone, you know, would like my music that much. You know, it's just some really great reviews, and there was also some really negative reviews too. And I mean, you know, it comes, you get the good and the bad, but there was definitely more good ones. Just in some of the people that like wrote them, like Resounding Footsteps was a cool zine. It doesn't longer exist. The guy wrote a really fucking good review. And From Corners Unknown wrote a really good review. Just really, you know, like, picked up on all the atmosphere of the album. Just wrote this really good, I mean, it was awesome, you know. And, you know, it's, still this day, it's, I think I have to remaster someday and definitely release in physical format. Because I think it's definitely one of my best albums, and I think it deserves the physical treatment. So I don't want to say for sure, but sometime in the future, look forward to Oblivion to You All coming in a physical format. Probably super limited, and it'll probably still be a pretty DIY home packaging kind of affair. But I just need to bring that album to a physical form, because it's just it's an album that still really means a lot to me, and something that just, it has to happen. One of the things about this album that I had a lot of fun with is I really started to kind of talk to more people in the scene, and I had more guest collaborators on this album. Once again, my girlfriend Kara, she did some spoken vocals on the first song, Introspective Dissolution. And as well, my friend Steve from high school, he did the spoken passage on Back Into the Hole Where I Was Born. And he delivered just what I felt was just awesome voice acting. And I think, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better, you know, vocal performance from him. And he, you know, he just nailed it, and I didn't really even give him much direction. And then I've tried to, when I've seen him since, and encouraged him that he should probably do more voice acting because he did it so well. And also another song on this album, the title track Oblivion to You All, Michael Barnett from This Is Darkness Zine, he did some guest vocals. And basically, although it seems to be the song on the album people don't really like, it's a more abrasive piece where Michael is continuously saying Oblivion to you all to the point where he's screaming it. And I mean, some people have said that song kind of distracts from the overall mood of the album, but again, it kind of goes back to that character who is just saying Oblivion to you all, fuck you all. That was the whole point of the song, but I don't know if a lot of people necessarily picked up on that, which is fine. I don't really care, whatever. But it was cool collaborating with all these people, and I mean, it just gave, even though I still was the main writer of the album and everything, it was cool just getting more, input from other people and just seeing what happened, and I really enjoyed that. It's something I still really, just love doing to this day is, reaching out to other musicians and voice actors and stuff like that, and it's always cool. So I really wish I had a physical album to show you, because this is, the album artwork I really like a lot, and this was another idea brought to, realization from Maya from Glitch Witch, and she did such a great job. And although one guy said it looked like I ripped off a Walking Dead movie, TV movie poster, whatever the fuck, I wasn't even influenced by that at all for the album cover artwork, and I don't like The Walking Dead at all. Like the first 2 or 3 seasons were okay, but after that it went completely downhill. So I don't know why this guy had to say that it was a Walking Dead ripoff. But anyway, on the cover there's once again a lone human figure who's sort of in this this destroyed cityscape with these strange humanoid monsters in front of him, and Maya totally brought this idea to reality, and it was just awesome. I loved it, and I really feel like I need to work with her again someday if she's still doing this kind of stuff, because she did such a great job on both the Back to the Mud and the Oblivion to You All album artwork, and because she did such a good job in that artwork, I feel like it's just one of those things where it really should have been brought to a physical medium way back then, over 3 years ago, but it just never happened. And hopefully someday it does happen. But anyway, there's a lot of songs on this album that I really like. Introspective Dissolution has a spoken part from Kara, and she serves as like a narrator on this album. She tells the tales of what's going on in this apocalyptic world, and just for a joke, I kind of told her you should say it in an English voice, and she did a really good job of doing. I think she did a pretty good job of sounding like someone from England, and it was really well done, I thought. And other songs like Where Snow Remains and Life Fades is a more polar ambient song, as they call them, and it sort of has this character walking through the snow until he finally just falls over and becomes one of these humanoid zombie creatures. And a song like Back Into the Hole Where I Was Born is, like I said, a song where Steve does the guest vocals, and he does such a good job. And at the end of that song, that song is basically this character lamenting over the loss of his family and just the destruction of the world. And at the end of the song, he puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out. So there's just there was I don't know. I just feel like I was really kind of angry at the time. I don't know why, but there was just no hope in this album. Not really much of anything. And the only song that really kind of provides any sort of hope is the song Those Peaceful Days of Our Past, which is sort of maybe like dungeon synth kind of style song I created. A real short song, under 3 minutes, and I sampled in these sounds of these crows that I had recorded somewhere up in northern Wisconsin. Actually, no, it was in Bayfield, Wisconsin. I remember it quite well because I had woken up that morning, and they were sitting on this patio, and I walked up there with my field recorder, and managed to capture these sounds of them just kind of cawing and making their sounds, and it was just a kind of real special moment. It was kind of cool incorporating into that song, especially since that song goes right into the much more gloomy Back Into the Hole Where I Was Born. But you know, it's an album that I look back on, I'm really proud of, and I mean, I got, you know, such great feedback on it, and I think it was really the album that kind of helped to kind of establish this project and really. I hope when I talk about myself, I don't sound like cocky or anything like that, because I've actually got a really low self-esteem. So it's just I don't know how else to really say this stuff without sounding cocky. So hopefully you're not sitting there watching this thinking like, why is this guy such an ass, like so into himself? Because I'm not. I actually I'm usually shitting on myself most of the time. So anyway, it's an album I like, and I definitely want to see it brought to physical format, and yeah, so it's Oblivion to you all, my second proper full-length album. Well, that's it for today, and the tales of Noctilucant and the behind the stories factoids, and hope you enjoyed this. I know it's something a little bit different. I know I usually don't talk about myself so much, and I usually focus on much better artists than myself, but I think it's interesting because there's not really necessarily a lot of people out there talking about dark ambient, especially like, you know, behind the scenes stories and stuff like that. I mean, I hear some of that stuff like from some of my friends in the scene. They tell me little private stories. It's always interesting hearing it, so I thought it would just be kind of fun to show, you know, kind of tell my own stories in this, you know, this public forum like this. So hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, like I said, if this gets a good reception, I'll definitely continue this series, talk about more of my releases and showing the physical albums and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, telling how the albums came about and little, you know, tidbits about each song and stuff like that. And other than that, yeah, I mean, you know, as always, guys, fucking hey, thanks for supporting Noctilucant, thanks for supporting Dark Ambient, this channel, the Inner Sanctum, all the things, man. It's we got a great community out there. We all get along, and that's really important. And, you know, even though dark ambient music is growing in popularity, it's still it's the one genre of music out there that hasn't been fucked by, you know, mainstream stuff, you know, and I hope it stays that way. I want to see dark ambient grow, but I want it to just kind of reach that point and then just stop. I don't want it to ever become trendy or become the next big thing, because once that happens, it just becomes super saturated, the feeling's gone, the atmosphere is gone, and it's all just about producing, you know, not even a quality product after that. So hopefully the scene continues on, and hopefully all the friendship and all just the, you know, just the nice people in the scene continues onward, and, you know, we go on and just everything's happy and wonderful doing our gloomy ass music. So thanks for watching as usual, guys, and I will see you next time. This is Joe from the Inner Sanctum signing off.